What's up, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, dogs and cats, and all the fish in the ocean? It is I, your grumpy guide to all the tabletop role-playing game news, weather, and general internet nonsense. And oh my giddy aunt, do we have some general internet nonsense for you? We have a huge May 24th, May 23rd information dump from Wizards of the Coast. Tons of new information to go over. But rather than shoving it all down your throat at one time, I'm dividing it up in little portions. So our first portion, of course, we went over the latest lack of information from Jeremy Crawford. And even as I was finishing that video, we got another one. Apparently, according to Jeremy Crawford and Wizards of the Coast, 1D&D was never supposed to be called 1D&D. So that whole time period where we were referring to it as 1D&D and they were referring to it as 1D&D and the playtest is called 1D&D and it literally says 1D&D on the D&D Beyond site, nope, was never supposed to be called that. Never was called that in-house. That's not what they referred to it. It was just a working title, much like how the Marvel titles have working titles and the Magic the Gathering sets have working titles. Like, Glass Top Stove was a working title for one of the Magic the Gathering sets. And Boy with Powers was one of the working titles for Spider-Man. So, yeah, despite that year long, no, we were never supposed to go. All right, moving on. Did you know Wizards of the Coast ran a survey on D&D Beyond? Yeah, they did. They've been running surveys. I don't know if you know that, but they did. And in the surveys, amongst the many questions they ask, which edition of Dungeons & Dragons do you play? It was on D&D Beyond. And, most of the people who got it were 5th edition players because it was on D&D Beyond. And we were talking about 5th edition. So, of the 5th edition players surveyed to see how many played 5th edition, turns out 40 to 50% of all 5th edition players are playing 5th edition. So yes, 60% of all D&D players as of 2023 are male, 39% of all D&D players are female, and 1% of all D&D players are other. 60% of all D&D players in 2023 are hybrid players who switch between playing the game physically and online. 58% of all D&D players surveyed play D&D on a weekly basis. 48% of all D&D players in 2023 identify as millennials. 19% identify as Generation X. And 33% identify as Generation Z. A majority of the current 5th edition D&D players started playing 5th edition with 5th edition. How many? 40 to 50. So 40 to 50% of the D&D 5th edition players surveyed on the D&D 5th edition D&D Beyond site during the D&D 5th edition 6th edition playtest, 40 to 50% of those play 5th edition, and 5th edition is the first edition they started playing with. Again, let's just clarify that for those of us who are still confused. Of the 5th edition players who took the survey on D&D Beyond during the current playtest of 2024 D&D, 40 to 50% of the 5th edition players surveyed stated that they started playing 5th edition with 5th edition, which means 30 to 50% play other editions and started with D&D. So 30%, 50, 60, 40, 50% of all 5th edition players started playing 5th edition with another system. Yeah, it hurts my head too. But basically what they're telling you to break it down is basically the people who play 5th edition started playing 5th edition with 5th edition because that was the first edition they started playing. Now, mind you, the people we surveyed are 5th edition players because we were surveying them on D&D Beyond for a 5th edition, 6th edition playtest. It's not like we put the survey out there on other sites to the general public. It's not like we were actively trying to not acknowledge people who play other games. But no, 40 to 50% of all 5e players play 5e and started playing with 5e, which means the rest of them didn't. Well, that's our first course. We have a little shaving of some genius from Jeremy Crawford on top, informing us that 1D&D was never supposed to be 1D&D. And for our first course, we have a lovely helping of 50% of all 5th edition players started playing 5th edition with 5th edition. Started playing Dungeons & Dragons with 5th edition. Isn't that delicious? Delicious. Thank you for this information, Jeremy Crawford, that makes no sense. Other than the other stuff. I mean, 60% are male, 39% are female, and 1% is other. I know that I'm in that 1% because when I take the survey, I always identify as Batman. Because remember, kids, always be yourself. Unless you can be Batman, then always be Batman. That's our first helping of the D&D information dump, dividing it into little teeny chunks so you can better swallow it. We'll be back in a few minutes with the next round. Till then, stay safe. Hug your children. It's scary out there.